Hello everyone, welcome to the Redmen TV and your latest edition of the Deep Dive. I'm Dan Clubb, that there is the brilliant Josh Williams as ever. I, of course, am filling in for Chris this week, hope you don't mind. I'll try my best to fill in the great man's boots, tactical analysis and all that stuff. And first and foremost, Josh, how are you? You okay?
Yeah, doing okay. I wish there was more going on though.
It's quiet.
It's, understatement, yeah.
Yeah, it's painfully quiet. Certainly for you and I who live fully in this world and we need things to talk about. It's been, I didn't imagine that sort of, what are we now, 24th of July, Liverpool are in the USA about to start their proper part of the pre-season, really. I didn't never imagine we'd be sat here, not scraping the barrel, that's harsh, but not speaking about nailed on transfers, like an all you need to know on XYZ player, it's not even a possibility, is it? It's crazy.
We did come close to one,
close,
to be fair, but
for about 2 hours. And then that was quickly put on the back burner. But let's wait for this August crescendo, as Richard Hughes has promised. Let's just wait and see. Instead, we're going to take a look at some of the fringe players. I'm going to talk about a couple of the academy lads along the way as well. I'll get your opinion on a couple of those as well. I know you're not completely well versed on all of the kids in Liverpool's academy. I'm the strange person that is that, but we'll talk about the chances of them breaking in really to the first team plans and potentially affecting the transfer plans thereafter as well in the market, and whether the likes of Stefan Berg, Fabio Carvalho, etc. can get in front of Arne Slot and prove that we don't actually need to enter the market in quite the same way that we thought we might. I mean, Conor, Bradley and Jarell Quansah did that last season, so let's talk about who could potentially do that this time around.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of players on the fringes and there's some really talented kids and things like that, but I think there's a select few of them who, if they have a really, really good pre-season,
next couple of weeks,
they have an impact on Liverpool's behaviour in the next couple of weeks in the market. Whereas, as I used an example before the show, but say for example Harvey Blair or someone like that, if he has the best pre-season ever, Liverpool probably don't then say, right, we don't need a forward then, something like that, you know what I mean? So there's some players I think who have got a genuine shot. And we're going to touch on them and see the kind of prospect that they offer. Well,
that's where I guess the crux of the issue lies when it comes to Liverpool's transfer plans, because the party line, if you like, from every single journo, from Hughes and from Arne Slot himself, a little bit has been, I want to see all my options, I want to assess what I've got at my disposal, and then we'll act accordingly. So you have to be spot on. This next 2 weeks, 10 days, whatever it is exactly that. And we've picked out a few players who we think have got the best shot, essentially, of making that impact. Should we start off with Stefan Berg?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, okay, let's start off with Stefan Berg then. Obviously, off the back of a very successful loan spell at Mainz last season, 22 years old now, has been quite a big talking point really since pre-season got underway. Obviously, initially, talking 3-4 weeks back now, it looked as though he was the one angling for a move away. Then it calmed down a little bit when there's reports of a conversation between himself and Arne Slot. Now we're seeing like we're back to square one ever so slightly again, and he would quite like to leave because he does want to play first team football. What have you seen from Sepp in the numbers and obviously the eye test as well that suggests he could or couldn't make a big impact over the next couple of weeks?
Well, I think for a start, he's got like what we call the raw materials maybe to be a really good centre half. I think just the fact that he's like apparently 6'3", according to FBref, 22 years old, decent on the ball. The word is that he's a lot quicker and things like that in the past, which is obviously important. Liverpool play with a high line and all that stuff. Our centre halves have to be good 1v1. And on top of that, he's a bit of a threat from set pieces. 25 shots last season in the Bundesliga for Mainz. I'm assuming most of them headers, from corners and things like that. And that heading ability as well is one of his main strengths. It's a bit early, but maybe we get up to the viz now, do you think?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, why not? Yeah,
that I want to use to support.
He chipped in for a couple of goals as well in the Bundesliga. I know he scored against Dortmund once, which was a towering header. I think Aaron, our producer, was actually in the stadium when that happened, if I remember rightly. He's nodding to me, so he definitely did. So the aerial prowess that you mentioned you got to touch on it now, was defensively and also in the actual attacking sense as well.
Yeah, well, it's not a surprise given his height, but this is Bundesliga players last season, all positions, and this is aerial dual win rate as a percentage. And as you can see, I think Vandenberg is 9th, I think. And I've specifically included the age of every player there. You'll see he's the youngest, the only player in the entire top 50 to be 21 or under. I think the only other player, I think the next player, funny enough, who was 21, was 59th, and that was Hincapi. who's linked from Bayer Leverkusen.
Yeah.
But I think just that on its own is just a nice quality to have. Important quality for Liverpool. And the fact he's got that at such a young age just is a positive. And it's the kind of thing where if we were getting linked with him, if we were signing him, I'd be showing that bit and I'd be like, right, he's decent in the air, and all that stuff. So in terms of the basics and things like that, that's all right. And I said yesterday on the podcast that, getting linked with PSV, if he did well at PSV for like the next year, and we got linked with him again, like we would buy from PSV. They recruit good players. So I don't think that one is something we can absolutely bat off as Liverpool are playing games. Liverpool putting him in the shop window. I think he's got a genuine shot. See how he does and things like that. Just
on that, I wanted to pick up on something there because this isn't him as the player necessarily. It's been well reported that Liverpool have put a £17 million price tag on his head. Because, and I touched on it yesterday. I wanted to dive into a bit more detail. If we were being linked with somebody and the price tag was 70 million, I wonder what the reaction would be a little bit, because it's not top end by any stretch of imagination, is it? And I just think if Liverpool value a player at 17 million, I like Stefan Berg, and for what the squad role will likely be, a fourth stroke, potentially even fifth choice centre back when you consider Joe Gomez as well, £17 million is perfectly fine. But when Liverpool are doing their shopping and the 17, we had it with Sarendo last season. Yeah. When people found out it was just over 60 million, people went, well, what are we doing? Yeah. And I think if we were doing something similar in the market and buying someone of this value, questions would be asked. So I wonder whether putting that value on him suggests that Liverpool don't actually rate him that highly.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think usually you get what you pay for. Yes. Most of the time anyway. But the only thing I'd say on that is if Newcastle United tried 12 months ago to sign Quansah, I don't think they'd have got him. But his price tag now, I think, is minimum, absolute minimum 50 million, I think. And that's just based on what, 6 months, the last 6 months of the season. So it wouldn't really take much. And Van den Berg's only got 2 years on his contract too. Yeah. So it really wouldn't take much for him to have a really good season, get a new contract at Christmas time, and then in a year's time or 2 years' time, we're talking about him being worth around 50, like Quansah. So I know what you're saying, and by the way, getting 17 million for a player who's like fifth choice is fine. Manchester City have been doing that for a while, haven't they? So, I see what you mean.
No, it's one of them, and ultimately there is no right or wrong to that. I just wonder optically how that would look if it was reversed on its head. And like I say, I wonder if Liverpool priced him out of a move and put like a £30-35 million mark on it, you go, well, Liverpool clearly have no interest in selling him. But 17, he feels gettable to me at that price, and that could change over the next 2 weeks, which is why we're discussing it, of course. Somebody a moment ago in the comments asked how many loans he's had. He had a few loan spells out, of course. Preston, Schalke, Mainz most recently. They've all gone pretty well. He had a decent spell at Preston, 45 appearances whilst he was there, made 33 appearances last season at Mainz. And I've referenced this a few times, but I was lucky enough a couple of weeks back, spoke to Joshua Gulivogi, who's played literally alongside him at Mainz last season, centre half. Yeah. He spoke so highly as Van den Berg. So it's all the stuff in terms of like his physical prowess that we've now heard a lot about. We haven't seen it really in fruition yet. He said all of that stuff. He said he was boss in the air, absolutely rapid, strong, powerful, won his duels, all that.
He said he was rapid. Yeah. Did he? Yeah. Well, that's really interesting, because when we first saw Sep,
he wasn't.
He weren't. Yeah, he weren't. I saw him live myself when I think Liverpool might have played Preston in a cup, and he played for Preston, I think.
That rings a bell.
Might be right in saying that.
It rings a bell.
I think I went the game. Anyway, that was something that he was kind of lacking at the time. But I distinctly remember writing a tweet when he was 17. So how long ago was that? That
5
4
years
or 5 years ago. Yeah. And I remember writing a tweet saying, because everyone was battering him online, saying he's crap and all that stuff. And I said, something along the lines of, you have no idea how much a player of the age of 17, especially a centre half, can evolve in maybe 5 years. I think Carragher retweeted it, so it kind of went off. But if you think of Virgil, for example, when Virgil was this age, where was he playing? Groningen, was it?
Groningen, yeah. He wouldn't have made his move to Celtic by that point. I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah, but centre halves, for them to come in and immediately look capable, it happens, but
It's rare.
It feels like the centre half blew late to me.
No, I agree.
And Van Dijk was definitely one of them.
They need that, they need to be battle hardened a little bit, don't they, more than if they need that experience and that know-how and that nous, I guess, to get around. But where was he? Was it Groningen?
He was at Groningen, yeah. He scored twice and assisted 3 in that season.
Potentially playing against Arne Slot at that point as well.
Yeah. Probably still very good aerially at the time, I'd assume. Yeah. Because that's a skill that probably persists. But in terms of just... Like, if Van den Berg's quickened up, for example, even just getting to grips with your own pace and everything, there's a lot of development for a player to do at that age. So, but he's a player, unlike some of the other ones we're going to talk about, where there is a lot for Liverpool to go on in terms of, like, a bit of a sample size for him. Yeah. Like you mentioned there, his time at Mainz and his time at Preston as well. That availability is in itself is a big pick. Playing 45 times, or 43 of them starting for in a championship, which is physically grueling league. And then last season he appears in all but 1 Bundesliga games and starts all but 3 of them. Yeah, it's good. Available every week, so there's positive stuff there, but it all comes down to his ability as a player. Yeah, absolutely it does. Yeah. So just to finish off on him, then, what's your gut, your hunch on what happens after these 2 weeks? We're all back on Merseyside, August the 4th, whatever the date is. What do you think they've seen in Stefan van den Berg by then? I think it's I'm probably leaning towards maybe 70% likelihood of a sale, and 30% likelihood of a stay. Maybe slightly towards 60-40, even being generous there, but I also think it will depend on if Liverpool find a target who's attainable for a decent price and all that. Yeah. If not, maybe he stays and you get rid of Phillips probably and things like that. But what about you? Honestly, I'd probably be more weighted towards the sale. Even more than 70? Yeah, and not just because of all the things we've discussed, by the way. Yeah, probably more like an 80-20. All the stuff we've spoken about, I like, and I think there's a chance for him in terms of his ability to be that 4th/5th centre-back. I don't think he wants that. Yeah. And I think if he sees a pathway to just being that, I think he angles for a move again. We just mentioned how much foot he's played there. He clearly wants to play football week in, week out. He feels like he's ready for that. He's done it for 2 seasons worth. Now, he had a bad season with injury at Schalke, which really sort of stunted his development a little bit. So to recover from that and go again is something that speaks to his actual mindset and how strong he is mentally. And I just think he is making all the noises that he wants to be a regular starter somewhere. And what's he going to play for Liverpool if he is 4th, 5th choice? Well, I was going to say then it'd be interesting to just have a convo with him and kind of ask him what he was expecting, because I do think, I agree with you, but I also think surely if he's going to stay at Liverpool, a club the size of Liverpool, and he's like Liverpool playing 4 different competitions. There's a game literally every 3 days up until January, I think. Yeah. So he will have opportunities. Players get injured, and that Canate especially. So if I'm the player and if I'm advising the player, and Liverpool genuinely want to keep me for the next season, I think I'd stay. Yeah. And because I do think he'll get enough minutes to show if he's good enough or not, and if he is good enough, he will stay in the team. So Quansah proved that. Yeah, exactly. That trodden path exists now, at least for him. I agree. Like Quansah last season in the Premier League got 13 starts. That was not the plan, obviously, and that's probably come through injuries and things like that. But back end of the season, he was just in the team on merit. Yeah, he was. To be fair, he's keeping Canate out. Yeah, he was. And rightfully so, by the way, as well. Yeah. So it's an interesting one, but I do wonder, it feels like a lot of the noises, and who knows the truth behind them. It feels as though he wants more. And just saying to him, listen, there's a chance you play this, there's a chance Liverpool could get knocked out of the 3rd round of every cup competition. Only make it to the last 16 in the Champions League. And, Canate, Quansah, Van Dijk all stay relatively bulletproof in terms of injuries, and all of a sudden Van den Berg finishes the season with 9 appearances, and he goes, I could have gone to PSV or whatever. Again, it comes back down to how good he is. If he's good enough, he would get more than 9 appearances, you know what I mean? But it comes back to whether he backs himself and all that. If PSV, for example, are offering him, you will be a starter every week in the Champions League, I understand that then. If you would, if you would want to do that, that's sound, but I also think that surely the prospect of succeeding at Liverpool, stay for at least a year if Liverpool want you, and then reassess, you know what I mean? Yeah, I agree. And I think the chances of that happening we will finish now, the chances of that happening are much higher than had Jurgen Klopp still been there. I think he'd seen enough of Klopp's Liverpool because he's been farmed out on loan left, right and centre. Yeah. With it being Arne Slot, the conversation might be different. Okay, Fabio Carvalho. This one is a fascinating one, and this could be
a 5-minute long, 7-minute long segment, or it could be a 30-second one, because so much of it falls down on the position. So we touched on it yesterday, so forgive us for anyone who's watching this as well as the podcast, but he's just a number 10, Josh.
Yeah, you need to bear that, don't you?
Yeah, he's just that, and without that, I don't see where Fabio Carvalho fits in. It feels like if we kept him this season, let me just put it in layman's terms ever so slightly, if we kept him this season, I think we'd see him on the bench all the time.
I do.
And he'd never come on.
Yeah. At best, it'd be Carabao Cup, and it'd be like substitute appearances with 15 minutes left in the game and that. And I agree with you. I think Liverpool initially tested him there. They tested him here on the left-hand side as well. He's right-footed. Maybe he can cut inside and score goals. Probably the line of thinking, but he's not Premier League fast, so we can't threaten him behind.
What is he then? He gets out of spaces, he's skillful, he's quite graceful on the ball. I think he scores goals as well, you know, down the leagues, albeit, but he's chipped in with goals. He chipped in with goals for Liverpool against Newcastle, of course, but he knows where the back of the net is.
Yeah, that's definitely for sure, yeah. Like last season, he scores 9 on loan at Hull, 2 assists, and then his final season for Fulham, he scored 10, 7 assists.
And he's a kid still. And what I will say about the Hull loan as well is probably important to mention. He was playing catch-up that season. Joined in January after barely kicking a ball for Leipzig all season long. So give him his credit and his due for that, like. But again, I come back to it, for Liverpool, for what Liverpool are, without Arne Slot, not likely to play a 10, it feels like, anymore. I just don't know where he finds a home in this side.
No, I agree. And I think as well, even if he wants to play as a 10 and Liverpool were willing to accommodate that, the bottom line is he a good enough 10 for Liverpool to make that shift?
Good point.
No.
You build your team around him.
Exactly. He's not worthy of... Even if Liverpool played with a 10 system, he wouldn't be good enough to start there, because you'd have other players who are better than him, even as a 10. Do you see what I mean?
Who goes in ahead of him there?
Well, I'd pick several players ahead of him there. If I'm honest, I'd throw Gakpo in there ahead of him, even though Gakpo's not really a 10. Yeah. Elliott, I'd be insisted to test. McAllister certainly. Szoboszlai potentially. Even like a second striker vibe with Jota or something. Yeah. But so Carvalho, I mean, I've just killed him there, haven't I? Really?
You have. But let's spin it on his head a little bit then. Is there any hope? You said right at the top of this, there's a few players in this travelling squad, the 28 initial travelling squad, that regardless of how boss a pre-season they have, they're not going to be part of Arne Slot's plans, and rightfully so, because some of them are very much youngsters, kids, a couple of 16-year-olds in there, for example. What changes Fabio Carvalho in that conversation? Like, if he was to absolutely set the world alight in these 3 games in America, is there a chance?
I suppose there's potentially a chance, but I come back to it, like, even if he goes and scores 5 times or whatever, it keeps going back to where does he play, and wherever you think he plays, sound, who's he keeping on the bench then in that scenario? And yeah, I can't see it. And given the fact he's a homegrown player, still only 21, does have that knack for getting goals and assists. 3 years on his contract. How much do you reckon we could get for him?
What do we pay for him? It's like a tribunal thing then, with a compensation, yeah. I still think you'd get, it depends. All of his best work's come in the Championship.
Do you think he's Premier League good? At any level?
That was kind of where I was starting. The problem is he's such he's of the ilk whereby he probably needs to be top end of the Premier League because of the type of player that he is. If you're scrapping relegation, I'm not sure you want Fabio Carvalho.
Yeah.
Not to say he's a luxury player, but almost that, a little bit.
Yeah.
Middle, maybe a Brighton? Will Brighton take a look at him?
Yeah, Brighton came to mind for me, actually, thinking about that. Yeah, only because if he did well, he would end up adding value to his profile, and Brighton would probably cash in or something. Yeah.
Okay, let's have a look.
But
I can see back to Fulham, by the way, in the middle of that. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, maybe a Leicester. It feels like it'd have to be a ball-playing side.
That's what I mean. That's why I'm not really counting the ones down the bottom. West Ham would be a fit.
Yeah, I don't think he's good enough, though. I don't think he's good enough to start for West Ham.
That's answered that, then.
Yeah.
Therefore, this conversation about him at Liverpool is a non-starter.
I can see him maybe 12th to 20th Premier League.
I've just spotted Crystal Palace. They just lost Michael Elise.
Yeah, do you think he's that level now? Yeah. And he's not left-footed, so he couldn't.
No, he's not. He's not Michael Elise like for like.
You think he's Palace level? Yeah.
I think he could play for Crystal Palace, yeah.
See, the season just go with the Palace just finish, and the season just goes.
Probably about 4th the finish they had with Glasgow. They were flying.
It's always 10th, isn't it? Yeah, 10th. They finished 10th every season.
I think he could play for Crystal Palace.
Palace for me is the ceiling. Then.
Is it?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, therefore
sell him.
done, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't answer then. I think around the 15-20 mark, probably for him.
See, the problem with that is them teams. I can't see him playing for Everton. No. I can't see him playing for Brentford or Forest. Just stylistically, I can't see a fit there. Luton, obviously Luton have gone now. But it'd have to be a team that can play football.
Leicester came up, didn't they? Southampton, that's not a bad.
No, Southampton.
They play football. Russell Morton gets the ball down and play. He'd love him.
Yeah, I can see that.
He's that sort of player.
Yeah, and Leicester, I can see, even though they just lost Maresca to Chelsea, but I know they were playing
Steve Cooper now,
stuff.
Isn't it?
Yeah, Steve Cooper, yeah.
He gets the ball down a bit, he's okay.
And Marco Silva's still in charge of Fulham.
Yeah.
I could see him going back to Fulham, but then would they be mugs like that and bring him back after he leaves on a free and on a lot of stuff?
If it helps them be a better football team, then
maybe
they probably should. Maybe. Anyway, so I think we're both in agreement that it's not likely to happen to Liverpool.
No,
okay. It's a sell. Okay. Sorry about that. I just had to text Fabio Carvalho and apologise. Stefan Bajcetic next. Let's do him. Now, the big sort of elephant in the room with Stefan, I don't think anybody, you or I or anybody watching at home, would question his potential, his ability. Like, absolutely phenomenal when he hit the side, he absolutely hit the ground running. Actually ended up being his own downfall by the fact he was so good and had to play him every week. He ends up getting injured as a result. Yeah, we literally broke him, overload and all that sort of stuff. But there's only really the doubt because we haven't seen him for 12 months. Yeah,
and on top of that as well, what we did see of him, we just haven't saw that much even still. Like in total, we saw 520 odd minutes in the Premier League. That's it, actually. Everything else below that is Premier League 2 and things like that.
But the sample size was so joyous.
Oh yeah, it was, but I think I'm talking from the perspective of like if you want to apply data.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Where I usually would and Liverpool probably would like to and stuff, but there's just not enough data, so it's purely using the footage, eye test stuff.
Yeah.
And he ticks them boxes, like he looks visually a good footballer, obviously, but he's still a bit of an unknown quantity. Isn't he?
Well, I wanted to ask you actually, what type of footballer? I find it hard to pigeonhole him. I think he's a wonderful footballer, I'll say that. But what is he? I don't have him down as a 6 necessarily. I think he's more than that. And I think we've seen glimpses of it. It's interesting actually started off as a centre-half for Celta Vigo and then clearly wasn't physically imposing enough to be that and moved up the field to a more of a holding midfielder type. And I think we've seen glimpses of him do he scored that box goal against Aston Villa, dancing around people in the box. So he shows he's got a little bit there as well. In this system, we don't exactly know what it's going to look like yet, but for Liverpool moving forwards, what do you see him as?
I think I probably see him as a 6, to be honest. I don't see him as an 8.
Do you think he's got the tackling
ability? I think I'm looking more at the 8 and seeing what he hasn't got.
That's a fair point.
See, with the 8 thing, you have to be comfortable with him potentially being
that far advanced,
part of the front bank of 5. And I don't think you want Bajcetic here. Okay. I think you want Bajcetic behind the ball, looking at forwards, running beyond them. There was a spell where he played here for Liverpool on the left of the 3 as an 8, looked good. On the back of that, people have liked it. But this was when we had like Thiago, Wijnaldum and stuff like that doing it, and it was kind of like Fabinho would move over, this fella would tuck in, and this fella would go. And the midfield 3 was kind of a bit like that, with the right side of the 8 being a bit more advanced, and the left side of the 8 forming like a weird double pivot on a slant. So I think he did well there, but if you're doing like a typical 8 thing where they're both going, and it's quite vertical, box to box, I don't see Bajcetic adding any value at all, if I'm honest, in the final third.
Okay.
As a final third player, I don't see it at all. I see him as a middle third player. And if you want him in the middle third, a 6 is probably the answer. I think I'd like him with a partner.
Yeah.
So if he was, one of 2 6s or whatever, I think I could feel a bit more comfortable. Maybe we'll see a bit of that, but so the idea of him this season being a lone 6 is scary.
Yes, that's where I'm at with it.
Yeah.
But you think Is it the ladder midfield that he does a little bit more of? So he's got a McAllister in around him somewhere. Would that be your choice if you had someone alongside him?
Yeah, it wouldn't. Yeah, it wouldn't feel too bad if he was kind of always a partner with him. Because again, I don't actually know how good he is defensively. I feel like that feels relatively unknown. I think he can get better at dictating play and things like that and being more of a 6. Yeah. But again, how old is he? 19?
Yeah, he's still so young. That's important to remember. Is he a bit, again, simplistic? Is he a bit lightweight? You don't look at him and go, well, you're the 6.
You don't, but he's also not like a pushover. I don't think apparently he's 6'1", according to this. So again, if we were signing him, I'd be touching on that as a box ticked. Yeah. So I know what you mean. I do think he's got a bit of a uncertain future positionally. But for me, if I had to guess, if you used to tell me now Bajcetic is going to be boss when he's 25, playing for Spain and everything.
Hi everyone. Where were we? Yeah, Stefan Bajcetic.
So I think I was about to say, if you were to say Bajcetic is going to be amazing when he's 25, playing for Spain and everything, where does he play? My guess would be here. Would it not be there for you?
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Yeah. But I guess a lot of that depends on how good a side you are as well. If you're dominating the lion's share possession and you're not calling on him time and time again to be putting out fires left, right and centre, I think that's probably fine. Right now, I do have reservations just about that physicality aspect, just because we haven't seen it. As you, again, come back to your sample size point earlier on, we haven't seen it often enough yet. Obviously, came back into side, back end of the season, was nowhere near it, absolutely nowhere near it. But I really like him as a player. I think he's graceful and he's got a lot of potential. And he's probably the one, in terms of that older age group of players that are on the fringe, these people that we talk about, he's the one that excites me most.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, there was a time a few years ago, comes to mind in comparison to now, to be honest, where we didn't really have much of a right back. Nathaniel Klein was the player he was playing. And we had a decision to make. We could go and buy a new right back, or we could be patient, bed in Trent. Trent becomes that right back for you for the next 10 years. We're in the position now, everyone's calling for a 6. Endo's the guy. Endo's the Klein. Nathaniel Klein of the number 6. We can go and buy a new one, or we can look at Bajcetic, be a bit more patient, take maybe a little bit of a performance hit for a few seasons, but he becomes the 6th version of Trent. Yeah. So I think that's what Liverpool are more likely to do. But
what I'd say is I think both things can coexist. If you can get enough football for Bajcetic, if you've got enough football for Sepp Vandenberg, a minute ago, he's like 4th or 5th in the pecking order, you can get enough for Bajcetic with a signing in there. Because to me, you were Taro Endo at 31, I think I'm right in saying, and at that stage of his career in the football, or lack thereof, he's likely to play. From him to Stefan Bajcetic, a relative unknown in Stefan Bajcetic again. He's starting again this season for me. Like, clean slate almost, because he had that sample size. He's missed an entire season. You can't, for me, go from that to potential. There has to be a middle ground, and that's where I want the signing. I want the 24, 25-year-old signing who's ready to hit the ground running. They're not going to be Rodri. They're not going to be Declan Rice because they don't exist. But there's potential, there's experience, and then there's the guy in the middle. Yeah, and it's the guy in the middle that we're lacking.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like the functional player who's going to be able to just deliver tomorrow.
Come in and just do it. He might not be world class. He might not be absolutely top of it. He could be, and hopefully he would be. And if he isn't right now, he might grow into become that, of course. But I take your point on Bajcetic. I think there's a hell of a player there, and we can't stand in the way of his development without a shadow of a doubt. But I think he can get enough development, certainly on the back of the season he's just had. Yeah. He probably, the worst thing for him would be playing the first 15 games of the season.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. And if he does play a part this season, it will not be. I can't see him at any point, to be honest, playing more than one game in a week. I think it'll be a case of like
that's a problem in itself.
Once every week. Yeah. So I don't think you can hang your hat on this season. Wouldn't be fair to be honest. But future wise, you know, you've got something.
100%. I don't think any of us have any reservations or doubts about his future at Liverpool and these next couple of weeks. And he is the one I come back to. He is the one out of these group of players that we're talking about who I think will impress over the next couple of weeks and will definitely will come away from this tour going, yeah, Bajcetic, I've got to be having a close look at him all season long.
Do you think out of all of them, he's got the highest ceiling?
Out of the people we want to discuss? Yeah, I probably do.
Yeah, I think I agree with you.
Do you? Yeah. It's just so good to watch.
I
can't get that turn at St James's Park.
I know.
That was all I needed to see.
All that comes natural to him, doesn't it? You can tell he's just
that awareness of what's around him, wing mirrors on, just
Spanish.
The scanning, unbelievable footballer. I actually spoke. I often name drop, so forgive me. I spoke to his first coach at Celta Vigo a little while ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He loved him.
Did
adored him. He said he was just born with that as well. That ability, just the acceptance of the ball, and the Spanish players just do that.
There's something about the Spanish midfielder. They're all making unbelievable coaches now, and it's no surprise. They just know how to use the ball, mate. They just know how to play in that middle third.
They play certain. We've seen it in the Euros, didn't we, with Spain?
Yeah. They just have a gift for it.
Okay, let's move on then. Let's do Tyler Morton, shall we? While we're on the topic of this position, let's cover him a little bit. Obviously, spent last season on loan with Fabio Carvalho at Hull, of course. Had a really good season, actually. He had a couple of decent loan spells now. I think Blackburn it was previously, wasn't it? The manager, I think it was John Dale Thomason, absolutely adored him. 21 years of age, 2 years older than Bajcetic, fighting for the same position, more or less, I think it's fair to say. Where are you at?
Yeah, well, I said on my podcast last week, I think his biggest problem is Bajcetic. Because I think as good as Morton is, and I do definitely rate him, I think Bajcetic is just a bit more special.
I agree.
And they are very similar profile-wise, similar positionally. Bajcetic is 2 years younger, so you've got a potential problem there, but as an isolated... What's Morton like? You know, I like him whenever I see him. He seems to be a player who is, I think Klopp might have said as well, like he's just a natural footballer. He just gets it. You know, when you put him on the pitch. But there's been players like that in the past, like Roy Keane comes to mind, Scholes, players who just you don't need to tell them anything. They just Paul Mason as well. They just get it. They just know how to play football, and it's autopilot almost.
Yeah.
Tyler Morton, obviously that's big praise for him, but. He strikes me as a player who just kind of knows what he's doing and will cope, and that's why, you know, he's had 2 successful loan spells now with 2 different clubs in a really dominant physical league. Yeah. You know, 30 appearances, 30 starts for Blackburn, 40 appearances, and 35 starts for Hull, 39 appearances. So great availability. I think he's generally very reliable on the ball, doesn't lose it much. There's no stardust there.
No, unlike Bajcetic has that.
Yeah, I think he's maybe a bit more functional, but at the same time, sometimes, if you're chatting sixes, that's what they like. Guardiola wants a six to not have any tattoos. He wants to tuck his shirt in all the time, and this Mike's a nightmare.
Absolutely seamless.
Get on this.
Yeah, nice, I mean, yeah.
Nice little addition.
I wasn't going to mention it, I was hoping nobody noticed.
Spot the difference compared to before.
Anyway, you've gone from the Stefan Bajcetic of Mike's to Tyler Morton. That doesn't even make sense, but let's crack on. Tyler Morton.
Sepp Vandenberg, Mike, maybe 6'3".
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to bring up a comment actually. Quote from Jurgen Klopp. I remember this prior to the show, and I've just found it, I think. Tyler Morton said he's already taken advice from Jurgen Klopp on his physique. Because I remember a few years ago now, obviously, I think it was after the Porto game, Klopp praised him, but basically said he wasn't big enough. He wasn't strong enough yet. I mean, I know this is a couple of years ago now, so he was always going to grow and develop and actually grow into his body and stuff like that and work on that sort of thing. And Morton said he was working on it there. But I must admit, having seen him, I'm still not convinced. If Stefan Bajcetic is a similar build, he's 2 years younger, of course, but you said it a moment ago, Stefan Bajcetic has that innate understanding. He has that sprinkle of something special. I don't think Morton has it. I think Morton's a perfectly sound DM. And a perfectly, you said, functional, absolutely. But is that enough for Liverpool?
Yeah, well, he's apparently 5'10", Bajcetic is 6'1". So, again, that kind of, there's definitely a difference there. And I must admit, I haven't watched Morton in the Championship, really. So, I don't know how much he's developed physically over the past 2 seasons.
What he has got is an eye for a pass.
Yeah,
eye for a pass. Like I get, him and Fabio Carvalho actually linked up quite nicely at times last season. So he's got a lot to like about his game. I just don't know if he's got enough to like about his game to be part of this squad. Yeah,
he strikes me as an old school six. I think, like, I was going to say before, Guardiola likes his sixes to like tuck the t-shirt in, and no tattoos and drive a forward focus and things like that, because they don't want any flashy stuff. A six is just kind of the guy who no one ever notices, and no one ever praises, and no one ever writes about. Morton feels like that, to be fair. He feels functional, and reliable in that, and he plays every week. And I would be really interested to see him go to Leipzig, though. He's linked with Leipzig, and see him at a Red Bull club. And if Leipzig are interested, and by the way, that does suggest something. They're good scouting. Their scouting network's really, really good.
He feels like a good fit for them.
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, to the extent where it might be one of them where if you sell him, you add some form of clause where, like, you can get him back easily or something like that, like Villa have just done with Philogene or something. Yeah. So I do like him as a player, but Liverpool's midfield's crowded, and he has one the kid underneath him, well, above him, who's younger, taller, just a bit more special, so it makes it a bit tricky, doesn't it?
And it does, and I come back to the point I made earlier. Now, Morton hasn't made the same sort of references to the fact he wants to go out and play regular football. I'm sure he does, by the way. He's been a bit quiet, a bit more understated, which probably comes to the point you're making about just going about his business kind of character. But he's played a lot of football now. He's going to want to continue. He's not going to want to go from 40 odd appearances, 50 odd appearances across the course of 2 seasons to 5, 10, 15 for Liverpool, if he's lucky, by the way, when you look at how crowded that midfield department is. So I personally would fall down on, almost regardless of what happens over the next few days when it comes to pre-season, I think we look to cash in on Tyler Morton on the back end of it.
I think we probably do as well, but if it's not Leipzig, I do think he's probably Premier League good now, and I would be interested to see him at that level. We were speaking about Carvalho before and what clubs could he potentially play for. I think Morton could play in the Premier League, and just looking at teams now to see who he could potentially suit.
Leicester again, they've lost Kane and Dewsbury Hall.
Yeah, I mean, I think Brighton are rumoured to be selling Billy Gilmore to Napoli. Yeah, he feels like he could replace him potentially, but I don't know, just something like that. But I do think he's got a good future ahead of him though. Yeah. I think he's a good player.
Okay, same. I always look at FBref and the comparison of players statistically over the past year, and that gives me sort of a guide and a benchmark as to where that player's at. Certainly when Liverpool are linked to players, I use it. I feel really harsh. It's not pretty reading for Tyler Morton, I would say, because the names and even the clubs, apart from the very top one, of course, aren't stacking up.
Yeah.
Would that be a fair assessment?
Well, I think that could be because of the league he's played in. So I think rather than getting compared to the top 5 leagues, I think he's getting compared to the more obscure leagues. I think, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, but I think you are right though. Like you mentioned there that he's good on the ball and things like that, which he is. I've seen him. He receives the ball really well and stuff like that, but I expected him, for example, to post more progressive passes than he actually is. Then he's good with the ball, and then there's what he's looking to do with the ball, I guess. Yeah.
Because the word progressive is doing a decent amount of heavy lifting there, and clearly he's not.
No,
doing
he's not.
That.
No, he's probably focusing more on retention than progression.
Okay. Sad. I think we've pretty much decided on him then. Who should we talk about next? Who have we got left to do? Ben Doak?
Yeah, Ben Doak's an interesting one.
Love talking about Ben Doak. I'm happy to talk about Ben Doak until the cows come home. One of my favourites. I've been gutted actually with Ben, just his injury problems actually, and I guess that comes with the territory a little bit when you are absolutely lightning quick, like Michael Owen.
I was thinking of Michael Owen then.
Without meaning to put too fine a point on it, had exactly the same problems, and I don't want to sort of big him up too much because using those comparisons is high praise indeed, but rapid. Like one thing we do know about Ben Doak, a couple of things we know about Ben Doak, he's not scared to take people on. And he leaves them for dead more often than not as well. I mean, just ask Luca Dean. He's still looking for him now. I think Luca Dean. Ben Doak has, whatever it is, I feel like Ben Doak might have it. He just needs to hone what he's doing a lot more. People are really critical of Ben, by the way. I think he's 18 still, maybe 19 now. Maybe even younger, to be honest with you. But people are really critical because the end product doesn't exist yet. But if he can just get everything together at once, we've got one hell of a player on our hands.
Yeah, I agree. I think more material-wise, looking at a player who's a forward, again, the speed, just a natural, massive strength that he's got, that he can just, it's like a superpower almost, isn't it? The problem I usually have with that is the players who are just rapid to that level. It's going to sound harsh, but they end up being a bit stupid with how they actually use the ball because they've never really had to think. They just run past players. I'm going to use a few examples. So, like, Dan James comes to mind as a player who isn't the smartest, but is absolutely rapid. Even Alberto Moreno.
Adama Traore.
Yeah, Adama Traore. Potentially Aaron Lennon comes to mind a little bit. But they're absolutely rapid. But their actual decision making. Timo Werner a little bit as well. Just a player who's almost too quick for his own good. Yeah. Where the decision can't catch up with his legs, almost.
Yeah.
So if it's too early to say any of that towards Doak. He's only 18, but if he can have other elements to his game, like output and like the ability to actually dribble as opposed to knock on and run, he will, as I say, he will be one hell of a player. I think it's probably too early for Liverpool to kind of accommodate him with their current transfer approach. Like, say for example, this summer, if Doak impresses in pre-season, I think Liverpool's still going by Anthony Gordon or Kubo or whatever. But there will be a point in the next couple of seasons where maybe we need a forward, and Liverpool just go, well, we've got Doak, you know, and hope he looks already on that path. If he doesn't get there, it feels like it's going to be injuries.
I agree. I think that's why I brought them up right at the top of this conversation, because I think he's had 2 injuries now. He's obviously part of the Scotland squad as well for the Euros and missed out on that through injury, which just tells you know how much they have curtailed his development up until this point. And I think I agree with you. If anything stops him, it feels like it is going to be that. I want to ask you a little bit about the type of winger that he is, because it's not what Liverpool use. No. He's a right winger who plays as an old school right winger. Yeah. He's not Ian Robben, he's not Mo Salah, he's not cutting in and whipping him into the top ends with his left. He's going on the outside of people and he's getting to the byline. What he does do, he commits people time and time again, and he beats people time and time again. When we have seen glimpses of him, I joked about Luca Dean, but it's real. He gets past people all the time. He makes people foolish, actually, more often than not. But because of the type of winger that he is, you have to have a certain type of striker. And I'm not sure Liverpool possess that right now. So if he is going to get a look in, whether it be pre-season or into the season, how does that look to you? Is it just we go, Salah's not worked, let's just live in that world for a moment. Let's try something different. Ben Doak, go on, X Factor it.
I actually think tactically he's quite an easy profile to lay out, really. I think he's naturally going to be hugging the touchline a bit more, because you know he's rapid. You know that whatever fullback comes up against him, if he's isolated, is going to have a bit of a problem dealing with him. So you just create that by doing what everyone's doing at the minute, which is overloading the middle with maybe a right back, creating that kind of space out wide here, 1v1, and then getting the ball to Doak and he runs right at you. Yeah. I agree with you in that he's not an inside forward who comes in and scores goals yet. He's probably a bit more in the mould of maybe a Doku or I think when Pep was managing Sane, he tried Sane here, left-footed, cutting inside and scoring goals. Ended up just playing him on this side, left-footed playing on the left, and Sane got to here, typically pulled it back, Aguero taps it in. I think Núñez is the type to get tap-ins, but he's the type to miss them, which is the problem. I think Núñez would actually benefit from playing with a winger who gets to the byline and cuts it back for him. Because he's good with the movements, he gets lots of shots, gets in the right locations and all that. He just misses them, which is the problem. Yeah, finishing
touch, he's lacking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if Doak played with if Doak played with Firmino, neither of them score enough.
No,
do you get what I mean?
Yeah. And
I know Núñez doesn't score enough, but at least
Firmino's hanging back here whilst Ben's gone.
Yeah, and I know Núñez doesn't score enough, but at least Núñez wants to be the tip of the spear. With Doak, he probably wants to. I can see his best version maybe being a bit more of an assist than a scorer. Yes, but if you can get both, I mean,
just because of the type of player he is, I agree with you absolutely. Yeah. He's, like I say, he's an old school winger more than anything else. Okay, let's move. So Ben, he's not going to go anywhere, I think, no. In terms of sales or loans, I don't imagine.
No, but I also don't think his breakthrough is yet. Okay. I think maybe a bit more patience with him, but you never know. I suppose, you know, Bradley and Quansah come out of nowhere, so. Yeah.
And like I say, he has that pace, which is...
And he's very Slot, by the way. You know, Slot likes to do what I've just said, where he overloads the middle, creates space out here, and Doak, you know, at an absolute flaw, is beating his fullback. He just over and over again.
There's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, definitely. Causes problems, yeah.
Okay, you want to touch on Owen Beck as well, which I must admit surprised me.
Why? You've seen him more than I have, so I would be curious to know
he's
why.
Obviously spent last season on loan at Dundee, and he did really well. They absolutely loved him. He's a very attack-minded fullback. Ian Rush's nephew, by the way, which stands you in
I didn't know that.
Played for Liverpool. Yeah, I spoke. Yeah, so that's good.
He's playing out of position then.
Clearly, chipped in with assists along the way for Dundee last season. Again, you know, wants to get forward, wants to. Very Andy Robertson-esque, actually.
Yeah,
I think, to be honest with you. Yeah. So there's a lot to like about that. But the reason it shocks me is because never really seen him for Liverpool. So he came back last season, midway through the season. Obviously got that grilling from Klopp on the bench. Remember that famous picture?
No.
Klopp was just going mad at someone. He did nothing wrong. He was just ranting about something that had gone on in the game. And Owen Beck was just there, like, terrified. He was like nodding along. It was quite funny. But never really got a look in at Liverpool. And the reason I'm surprised, moreover, is because the way Liverpool play. I know you touched on this yesterday in terms of the use of the left back might change, revert back to the left back, go in a bit and be in sort of the overlap. Does that need to happen for someone like Owen Beck to really come into the reckoning? Yeah,
possibly. I think he's just the kind of player. He reminds me a little bit of Bradley on the opposite side.
Okay.
In the sense that he is
I like that show,
industrious and likes to get forward and things like that. Good engine on him. And Bradley went to Bolton, I think, got player of the season.
Yeah.
Comes back. I think I'm right in saying Bradley didn't really get much of a look in at Liverpool. He just got loaned until he flew. And then when he comes in, is that right?
Yeah, I think he just smashed it in pre-season last year over in Germany.
Yeah, he just kind of did really well out of nowhere. And I think Beck, did he get in like something like Scottish Team of the Year or something?
Team of the Year, you're right.
Yeah, so I see a similar trajectory where, especially considering the future surrounding Tsimikas is uncertain. I think Robertson's 30 now. Injured a little bit more often than normal and stuff like that. So if Liverpool need a left back in the near future and he wants someone like a Bradley but just on the left, I think, you've got a fella there who's worth looking at least when it comes to that. So I've never really seen much of him, funnily enough, but I just think profile wise he makes sense to at least assess.
No, you're right, and very athletic. You said it there, he's got a brilliant engine, like Andy Robertson of old, if you like, and that's not to say it's gone for Andy Robertson, but when he was just absolutely relentless with the press, he was up and down, you just knew. You didn't even have to look half the time if you were in midfield, you just knew Andy Robertson was gone, and he was there. Owen Beck got that. So I think you're right, and he is like a younger version of that, again, off the back of a brilliant season up in Scotland. So there's a lot to like there. I'm really interested to see sort of how these next few weeks go for him, and whether Slot fancies him or not. Did you even consider Luke Chambers?
Not really. We do seem to be healthy though, don't we, when it comes to left backs?
Well, on that note, there's one that hasn't even made the squad, by the way, and I probably like him more than the other two, Callum Scanlon. Now, he got injured, I want to say in February sort of time, and missed a decent chunk of the back end of the season, which might lend itself as to why he's not part of this, but he is brilliant. Signed him from Birmingham a couple of years ago, boss.
Yeah, well, I'm leaning on you when it comes to him. I think I haven't actually seen him play. So
I'm going to rattle through some more names in a moment, and just quickly touch on some of the people in the academy who've gone over, by the way. But Owen Beck, there's a lot to like there, and I make you right in terms of his profile, in terms of what he could offer, and I like the comparison with Conor Bradley as well. So
I think it's purely because the positional need to a certain extent, the fact he's just flew like Bradley did, the similar profiles, the attacking nature and all that. So I just wouldn't be that surprised if we just kind of looked at what we've already got and say, well, we don't need a left back. Beck's right there, but you never know. I'd have to see him play a bit more.
The only thing I'd say on it, to sort of push back ever so slightly, is he's a left back, and I mean he's a left back. Whereas Luke Chambers is a left back who can play left centre half as well.
Yeah.
And Luke Chambers actually ends up at left wing back a little bit for Wigan last year, so he's got a lot more strings to his bow. He is an out and out, again, up and down the touchline left back, and that's sound if that's what you want. But it feels like Liverpool are moving towards more of getting a left-sided defender who can do left back and left centre half. And Luke Chambers, for what it's worth as well, had a brilliant season at Wigan. I went and watched him a few times down there. He's absolutely superb. And also, in a very physical league, League One is tough. I remember watching him against Stevenage, and Stevenage under Big Steve Evans, like proper League One, lump it forward to the 6'5" striker fella. He did really well. He handled himself brilliantly, Luke Chambers. So I think there's something to like about that as well. And I wouldn't sort of take your eye off him necessarily when it comes to stepping up this season. Is there anybody else that you want to toast upon, or are you quite happy?
I think obviously we've got some kids in there who attack, like Neoni, for example, is obviously a big talent and stuff like that. But I don't think we're anywhere near the point yet where, again, my theme of this show was Liverpool haven't bought anyone yet. Everyone's fuming. Why haven't Liverpool bought anyone yet? Because there's certain players who Slot wants to look at. Neoni is going to be really good, I think, but I don't think he's in that group yet, where like he might dictate your current business. So that was my theme with it. So he's definitely worth shouting out, but for me, as in like the here and now, I don't think he's on the cusp as Bajcetic or Morton or Sepp.
No, so we did it sort of along the way, but out of those names, the bigger names, if you like, that you've just spoken about there, who makes it this summer and who doesn't?
Well, it's difficult with Bajcetic because it feels like he's already made it.
Yes,
it feels like he's already a first
But
team
as I mentioned a moment ago, it feels like he's almost got to start again because of the amount of football that he's missed.
Yeah, I think Doak is also safe, but I don't think he makes too much of an impact this season. I think out of them all, the one who's probably got the best chance of staying and becoming a bit of a Quansah Bradley is probably Berg, I think. But even that, I still, I said before, 70-30 in favour of probably selling them. So, yeah, I don't know. I think Liverpool have a proper look at these players, but I think most of them will probably fall short of the grade simply because the grade's a joke. It's Liverpool, mate. So, that's normal.
What you're saying there will almost appease and will please the people who want transfers. Because what we're saying is, out of the 5 names we really honed it and focused on over the past 40 minutes, whatever it's been, only 2 or 3 of them have got a chance of actually, making their mark sufficiently enough that they are part of the plans. So that means we're going to have to sign at least 2 or 3, I would imagine, on the back of it. And that's kind of where I'm at with Liverpool summer, full stop. I think if 2 of those 5 can make a name for themselves enough to warrant a place in the plans moving forwards, and that means we've got 3 spaces left to fill, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, and then obviously you save some of the budget in that. Say you keep Sepp. You don't have, not as much of a need to buy a centre-half, maybe. I mean, some people will disagree on that, but that budget then, which might have been 50 million, goes on Anthony Gordon or someone like that, you know what I mean? So I always say when it comes to the window, it's like a moving floor, mate. You're swimming against the tide, the floor's lava. You have to just... What did I say? I seen a quote recently saying something like, the most important plan is the plan that you come up with about the plan not going according to plan. Do you get what I mean?
A lot of plans.
Do you get what I mean there, though?
I think so. I think that's with you.
Planning for things not going according to plan is what you need to be capable of doing in the transfer market.
I feel like there's a more concise way of saying that saying. I'll be dead honest with you. I mean, I'm no expert, but somebody asked if we sign that, be okay. Yeah, I think that's just going through the Premier League processes right now. So I think that will be a deal and another excellent academy prospect. We'll
be doing a show about him soon.
I would imagine so. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Just to finish off, I'll quickly rattle through some of the names we haven't spoken about. Kay Gordon, one of them. I mentioned earlier on how Ben Doak's profile isn't stylistically similar to Mo Salah's. Kay Gordon's is more so. Missed a lot of football as well. We're not going to spend too long sort of dwelling on him, but very talented footballer. Ended the season brilliantly as captain of 21s as well. I'll keep an eye on him over the next couple of weeks. Not necessarily sure he's going to make it. There's actually 5 championship clubs who want to try and sign Kay Gordon, so
left-footed as well, isn't he?
Left-footed, yeah. Left-footed right winger predominantly. Yeah, you like that. Yeah, and he's grown a lot. That was actually his injury problems. So he had growing problems, like most Liverpool players seem to do these days. Yeah. Signed from Derby obviously a few years ago. Brilliant. Scored some wonder goals at the back end last season as well. Yeah. Trey and Yanni, you touched upon him a moment ago, but my God, player, unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah, he's got a high ceiling, mate. Definitely. I like Liverpool picking up on these players, by the way, lately. I did a piece on this recently on my Substack, just Liverpool over the years, showing, I think it's Brexit.
Yes, no, it is. It's Stefan Bajcetic, ironically, was the last one we got post that. Yeah. Change the approach.
Yeah, I think the need when Brexit happened, to get in good kids from the country as kind of increased. And I remember Liverpool recruited for like a data scientist specifically dedicated to the Premier League too. Things like that. So
we've unearthed some gems.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, got a lot from Wolves as well. I haven't seen him play.
No, not seen much of him. I haven't seen him at all. Yeah, but I imagine he'll be at the academy soon. Amar Ronaldo fits into that category, so I got him from West Ham last year as well. He's been good. I'm not sort of enamoured with him being part of the plan moving forward. I think he definitely needs another year, maybe even 2 years in the youth, stuff like that. But another good player, don't get me wrong. Carter Pinnison's another one I really like as well. James McConnell, I think he probably needs a loan away from the football club.
I agree.
We've already spoken about Tyler Morton and Stefan Bajcetic. He's down that particular pecking order. Sound? Happy days.
Yeah, I mean, we've got options.
We have options, yeah. And no technical difficulties either whatsoever. Everything was absolutely fine.
Yeah, boss.
Yeah, we didn't end the show with that mic. That didn't happen. Nice one. Appreciate it. Thanks for getting involved as ever in the chat. We will see and speak to you all again very soon. Take it easy.